which you've seen on the Islamic website. They brought it here to be used to that. And they also brought in these Islamic fanatics in these major cities that the Jesuits control, which just so happen to be full of Jews. So they're planning a huge Jewish Holocaust here.
You want to name those cities, because I know you have them in your article.
Well, they brought an Islamic network down to the Golden Coast there in Florida.
Yeah.
They have one there. There's lots of Jews to kill there. They have one in New York. They have one in Detroit. They have one in Los Angeles. Everywhere where there's large Jewish communities, there's an Islamic terrorist site that the Jesuits have brought in, and you having used the CIA to do it.
I found it interesting that 2 years ago on Christmas Day, that it was the Muslims that were declaring that there was going to be a chemical attack. And I found that to be that there was going to be a targeted chemical attack in Ohio. And what happened that day is it had been relatively nice. And then on Christmas Day, there was just a snowstorm like you wouldn't believe throughout the entire state of Ohio, the northeast part, the exact places that they had been targeting a chemical attack. And, of course, it was one of their big mouths getting online talking about, and they were based out of Detroit, that he was taking off to Canada, and that there was going to be an attack coming to America. And, of course, I finger-pointed it right here for Ohio, and it never happened. So I know there's a big group over in Detroit. We've got one in D.C., in California.
Boston.
What about the South? Because I heard that the southern states were the ones that were being targeted for these dirty bombs, suitcase bombs. And I've always felt Phoenix was going to get nuked itself.
I don't know. The Bible Belt area of the country is the South. But remember, it's apostate because it's full of masonry.
Yeah.
And so, just like Lutheran Prussia was the Protestant area, it was apostate because it was full of masonry. And so, I believe that God has given over, is going to allow the South, and the rest of the country, but not the Catholic North. He's going to allow the South to be successfully invaded after we have a series of detonations in the South, because the South is the last historic Protestant Baptist civilization in the world left. They've all been destroyed. There's South Korea is a place that's primarily highly Protestant, and you have Northern Ireland, and South Africa's gone, Rhodesia's gone. There's no other place other than the Protestant South of North America.
They seem to be targeting that because the Knights of Malta seem to be targeting positions in the prophetic movement. I don't know if you've been following that, but Mark Joyner, knighted as a Knight of Malta.
Right.
Bob Jones Bob Jones, a lot of these prophetic people in that movement, they all have ties to the Catholic Church or Masonry.
Masonry. Bob Jones is full of Freemasonry.
Yeah.
That's why they hated Alberto Rivera. You know, when Alberto Rivera came out of the order and he went to get his sister at the convent in England, the guy who waited for him in the car when he brought his sister out was Avril Manhattan, the author of all those books. Avril Manhattan was invited to speak at Bob Jones. And Bob Jones III asked him, or he asked Bob Jones III, why have you done this to Rivera? Well, he says, well, because he never was a Jesuit. Well, Manhattan said, well, yes, he was. I was there with him when he got his sister out of the convent in England. And he says, well, the real reason is because Alberto is anti-Freemasonry. The Masons run Bob Jones.
And the Masons run Trinity Broadcasting Network.
I agree. I would believe that completely because you have a strong Jesuit hand there.
Yeah. Well, I did the research on that years ago, and it all tied back into the Masons. And then I just started calling it the Beast Network. And then the Beast Prophets out of the Beast Network. And I've been warning people. I have a thing on my website at SherryTalkRadio about Benny Hinn, where people can actually hear audios of him. And what I like to do on this show is drop names of people that people need to watch out for.
Absolutely. It's a biblical thing to do.
Yeah.
The Apostle Paul said, Alexander the coppersmith has done me great evil.
Yeah.
And so he named names, yeah.
And so the ones I usually talk about besides the Beast Prophets on the network themselves, Hal Lindsey, Jack Van Impe, Kenneth Copeland, Kenneth Hagin, who's now deceased.
Well, Kenneth Hagin's deceased.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he's deceased. He died last summer sometime.
Oh.
Benny Hinn, T.D. Jakes, Pat Robertson. Bob Jones. Mark Joyner, Paul Kane. Of course, he's embroiled in a homosexual scandal right now.
Who is?
Paul Kane. He has stepped down. He was partners with Mark Joyner. And the reason I bring these people's names up is because so many people are following these people, this whole Kansas City blasphemous prophetic movement thing as well, to where they're having fake visions, fake prophecies, fake dreams, and they keep talking about building Joel's army, and they're having these wild hallucinations they're calling visions, and I know the government's perfectly capable of pulling that off with their technology called ELF, with extremely low frequency microwave weapons. And so there seems to be an entire targeting of our church in general that's going to sleep and running right into one witchcraft after the next.
Yeah.
And so the Lord's called me, to lead His people back to Him, get them out of these beast churches, away from these beast prophets, just back into His Word, back to Him Himself, where He can teach them Himself. Because, definitely, you can see the Black Pope's hand in his arms of Satanism working everywhere.
Yes, it's everywhere. It's in the legal system, the medical system, the financial system. Everything's against us. Everything, this younger generation has everything against them, unlike the World War II generation or even the baby boomers.
Yeah, because we're just getting hit on all fronts right now.
That's right.
And our only hope is in the Lord.
Yeah, so what I advocate is that true Bible believers have to return to the Reformation Bible, the AV 1611, and get rid of all these other English Bibles that are based on corrupted Prodrome's Latin Vulgate, Westcott and Hort Greek text, and then meet in their own homes, because all these edifices, for the most part, are apostate, and then go from there. But I think the biblical doctrine of separation is extremely important at this time, lest we be corrupted with all this heresy and apostasy that's around us.
So you're advocating the authorized version of 1611.
That's right.
Is that the King James authorized version?
Yes.
Okay.
The edition of 1769, as we know it today.
1769?
Right.
Okay.
See, that underlying Greek text is the Textus Receptus, or majority text, and all the other Greek texts of all the other the Greek text of all the other Bibles is based on the Westcott and Hort Greek text, which is an utter corruption. They changed the TR in 5,788 places. And then Nestle came along, who was out of Tübingen, which was that apostate Lutheran seminary in Germany, which is full of Jesuits today. And then from there we have the critical text produced by Princeton, and that's where Carlo Martini comes into play, that Jesuit. So all the Protestants and Baptists are using a Roman Catholic Jesuit Greek New Testament, and thus the English version that comes out of that, for which reason there can be no revival.
Roman Catholic, Jesuit, yeah. Because people ask me what I read, and I grew up on the KJV. I just don't read many books out of it. I read Matthew and John. And well, thank you, Eric, for coming on the show tonight.
It's been my pleasure.
We're going to wrap it up now.
Okay.
But thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Sherry, and thank you for your listeners for listening.
Hey, God bless.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Folks, we're going to be back next week. It'll be listener call-in next week. Had a great time with Eric Jon Phelps. You can go to his website at VaticanAssassins.org. He is coming out with a reprint of his book that has all this information and much more. You can go to his website, VaticanAssassins.org. And I'll see you next week. It's been a rough week. Hang in there, folks. We'll probably see the Pope's funeral coming this week. A couple other things happening. Seems like April's happening with a bang. Keep up to date with my blog at SherryShriner.blogspot.com. I'll keep you updated there. And we'll see you next week. God bless.